the goal of an SEO agency, in my opinion, is to take the SEO knowledge that we have and marry that with the business goals that you have so that we can generate a positive outcome for you. Because there's plenty of scenarios where you could go and rank for a lot of keywords and you could get a lot of traffic to your site, but none of those translate into revenue.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow Podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host. I'm so glad to have you back listening to the show or watching, if that's what you're doing, on YouTube, or, there's a copy of it will be on Facebook and LinkedIn, you name it. But we're glad to have you here. We got a great guest today, Travis Bliffen, all the way from beautiful Franklin, Tennessee. If you've never been there, man, you got to go. It's within the greater, national metroplex, but just go to that part of the country if you've never been there. I've been there a number of times. It is fun. You got, major sports. You got a major airport. It's still growing like crazy, and the people are awesome, like Travis. So, Travis, welcome aboard, man. I'm so glad we have you on the show. I know you're busy, and I appreciate you being able to willing to share your expertise.
Oh, thanks for having me. And let's not tell too many people about Franklin. I think it's getting kind of full. I've been here for 8 years now, and I couldn't imagine wanting to move anywhere else. But I think we're about out of space for people. So don't listen to about Franklin. It's not that good, but I'm sure there's other parts of Nashville you want to come visit.
Yeah, there's Mount Juliet, Murfreesboro, even much further east, towns that we used to only hear of in shows like Hee Haw, like Gatlin, for Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. I mean, they're expanding like crazy. It's just one of those special places people like to be. So, well, tell us a little bit about yourself. I understand you were in the service before. Maybe start there and take us through what brought you in to learning how to work with SEO, and maybe you learned some of that while you're in. But if you could take us through that journey, that'll give us some context.
Yeah, so it's kind of a interesting story how I ended up in SEO. So I graduated high school, joined the military, was there for 4.5 years, got out of the military, moved back home where I was from in Illinois, got a job with the Department of Corrections, which was a solid job in the area. And then they closed some facilities, right? So I didn't get laid off, like I don't have that story, but they closed some facilities, so I got put on the midnight shift, which I really was not a fan of. And so after, I don't know, 5, 6 months of feeling like a zombie every day, I started thinking like I got to figure out something else to do. So I'm driving into work one day. I stop at Walgreens. I buy a magazine, right? It's like the best businesses to start. And at the time, it was best businesses to start in 2012. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Let me go through the list. And then I saw SEO on the list. It sounded really interesting based on the description of it. And I really didn't know much about it at the time, and I had no prior business background. So actually, when I signed up, I took some web design classes at the local college so I could kind of understand the HTML portion of it. And from there, then I actually just got my start by writing blog posts for a few customers. And one of them, after we wrote probably 15, 20 blog posts, I just started asking, what are you trying to accomplish with these? He kind of filled me in about it, and then he became our first SEO client. It was a tanning salon in St. Petersburg and Pinellas Park, Florida. They had 2 locations, and from there we just kind of I just kind of added on a couple more clients, and then fast forward about 2 years, and then we started adding on the first team members as well, and that's kind of how I got into it. But prior to that, I didn't have any known aspirations to be a business owner or to be in the SEO space. My job in the Army was infantry, so it wasn't really anything there that kind of led to it. So it was just a well-written article, I guess, convinced me to do it, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I guess so. Marching and sleeping in tents just wasn't your thing, huh?
Yeah, no, I
It is.
I said I don't want to make it a career, so no need to
Yeah.
re-enlist after the first go around. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say that. What's funny is eventually military can be a great career. I mean, my dad did it. My brother did it. I actually was a contractor for the U.S. Navy early on, tracking Soviet subs. I didn't have to sleep in tents. They put us in concrete rooms where we couldn't see the outdoors. It actually was a room in a room inside a building, another side of a fence and a gate. It was highly secured, if you may imagine. But I knew right away. I was like, nah, I need to get out in the world. So, in any case, so moving forward here, the reason why I'm so interested in this subject is I work with a lot of people, a lot of clients, across the US and even internationally. We serve clients in like 13 different countries. And I've lived in three different countries myself. And we have people from multiple industries that we serve from the global investor agent team. We work with a lot of investors. And one thing in common is people always say, I do this online stuff. I'm online. I don't even understand it. I don't know how it works. I wish I did. Or they'll spend money. They'll spend money on something like Google AdWords and
Mhm.
think, I know it's going to work. I could put a lot of money into it. That they're telling me it's going to work, but there's so much more to it than that. So we could probably spend 3 days with you 24/7, man, and go through this. But let's start at the beginning. When you first meet someone, let's say you meet a dentist, and he or she just got out of college. They're buying a practice, or maybe they're expanding. Maybe they've already got a practice. They want to buy another one, like up in Clarksville or something. Um, and they know that they want to grow and expand by using an online presence. What would someone expect when they come to visit you or meet you online through a consultation? What are the things that they need to be aware of, and what questions were they being asked? If you don't mind going through that process, because then we get into some of the, suggestions and things like that. I know it's just like when you go to the doctor, it's not like one size fits all. I'm sure. Mhm.
Yeah. So I'd say one of the most popular questions is what questions should people ask? And so much so that if you Google it, you can find the list of pretty much any question that a potential customer might ask an SEO company. So we actually kind of take an opposite approach of that. So you can ask, there's a lot of good questions you could ask, and you definitely should ask questions. But the first indication of whether or not you're on the right call is what kind of questions are they asking you? Because
Mhm.
SEO works, it's great. It's a great way to generate leads. It's a great way to generate revenue in some cases. In other cases, it's not the right time for it, or you're not in the right industry. There's not the right potential. There's a lot of reasons why it may not be the right answer right now. And so
Yep.
a good conversation first requires an understanding of what you as the business owner want to accomplish. Because
Mhm.
the goal of an SEO agency, in my opinion, is to take the SEO knowledge that we have and marry that with the business goals that you have so that we can generate a positive outcome for you. Because
Mhm.
there's plenty of scenarios where you could go and rank for a lot of keywords and you could get a lot of traffic to your site, but none of those translate into revenue. And I've
Yeah.
seen that, they'll say, oh, well, look, we tripled your traffic. And you look at it, you're like, well, I haven't gotten a single additional phone call. And it turns out it's just informational posts that don't really have any relevance to you,
Right.
especially if you're a local service business, something like that. And so that's really the first part, is to understand what the desired business outcome is. That way
Yeah.
you can figure out if SEO can meet that or not. And you can set out realistic expectations. How much might that cost? How long would it take? Because
Yeah.
if you have, if every competitor you have has never accomplished with SEO what you intend to accomplish, it doesn't mean it isn't possible. It just means that you have a long road ahead of you. If you have,
Yeah.
20 competitors and they're all generating the types of traffic and revenue that you would like to be, it means there's a pretty viable path to it. We just have to figure out what that is. So I think that's by far the most important part of the whole SEO conversation, is more focused on business goals than on SEO itself.
Yeah. I agree, and I appreciate you being candid about that because I know I teach people too in real estate how to invest. I teach the agents how to work with the investors. And with the agents, we're always wanting to do all this other marketing to bring in more business. And I always tell them, look, we need to first focus on your database. You need to get everybody that you know loaded onto your database, no exceptions. That means grandma, grandpa, your children, everybody, neighbors. Because agents will say, I don't want to bother my closest friends and neighbors and family. It's like you're not bothering them. If you're looking at it that way, you're got the wrong outlook. So in any case, what I'm getting at is you first need to learn how to have what's called a conversion, convert a contact or a prospect right into an actual lead that you actually service and earn a commission. When you can do that with the people you already know, then it makes sense to turn on the faucet for marketing, which could include SEO. But a lot of people instinctively just go right to the marketing. I got to turn on all these funnels, man. I got to have Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and email and text and phone calls and postcards and door knocking. But really, folks, if you just focus on being able to make a sale first with whoever's around you, then you can go turn on the marketing. So is that is that tied with kind of what you were saying then, Travis, where some people SEO might not be the right answer right now. It could be in the future. But are there other
Mhm.
reasons why someone might not want to look at SEO right now, other than obviously being able to conduct business, you know?
Yeah, so I'd say a few things in what you said. The first one is if you have the mentality that you're bothering somebody by offering them what it is that you're selling, you really have to stop and take a look at if you actually believe in what you're offering, right?
Yeah,
So if you know, like I have a service, I have a product, I have an offer that will affect a positive change for this person, they will be better
hmm,
on the other side of this. Nobody's really bothered by getting a better outcome than what they have.
yeah,
And so that's important that you're confident in what you're promoting. And if you have a strong hesitation to sell something that you have, you should look at what you're offering and see if maybe you need to adjust that a little bit so it does feel right.
yeah,
The
yeah,
second part I think that people do, you mentioned they'll try to be everywhere all at once, but marketing is very simple. You look at customer acquisition cost. How much did it cost me to convert somebody into a paid customer? And
hmm,
which channels do that the most effectively for the lowest cost. And once you maximize channel number one, let's say that one cost $100 per customer, and now you know, okay, Facebook, I can get them for 120 per customer. So then go to channel number two, maximize that, and then go to channel number three. And the
hmm,
only time that you have to add multiple is if one channel won't produce enough leads, in which case you just need to categorize the cost of customers by multiple channels and then turn on the ones that have the best ROI, which generally will
yeah,
be a lower customer acquisition cost relative to your spending. And so there's a lot of really successful companies that only market on one or two channels and they grow
hmm,
extremely well because they've maximized those, they've specialized, they've even figured out, as you mentioned, the conversion part. If depending on where you find your audience, you need to give them a slightly different message because they're going to be in a slightly different stage, right? If they're on
right,
Google and they're searching for, I need a dentist right near me for emergency tooth removal, they're at like the please, I'm going to call the first dentist with good reviews and see if they can see me right now, right?
yeah,
If they're
yeah,
on Facebook and you're running ads to them, they're probably not on Facebook looking for the emergency dentist, but maybe they're looking at some cosmetic stuff. Maybe they're planning teeth cleanings,
hmm,
whatever. So your messaging needs to be a little different depending on the channel as well. So I think that once you understand and you focus, as you mentioned, on the conversion, then you can figure out how each channel relates to that conversion and you can figure out where
hmm,
they probably are and tailor your messaging according to that.
yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? Let's do this. And I probably should have done this in the beginning. The audience, we probably have a lot of listeners now that understand everything we're saying. Some that are doing it with using SEO successfully, some that are just getting started, don't even know what it is. So would you mind providing just a quick explanation of what is it, the definition of SEO, and then some examples like with keywords and key phrases and things like that to help enlighten people? Because then maybe we can go into like an example of one of the maybe a challenge you've had with the client in the past, where helped the client overcome that.
Yeah. Yeah. So very simply, SEO is just a means of being more visible on search engines. By
Mhm.
default, people think Google, but really any search engine can have some level of optimization, right? So if you're on Amazon and you're selling products, you can optimize your Amazon listing so that they have more internal visibility as well.
Mhm.
So SEO really just means I want to be more visible when people search for very particular terms, which are keywords that relate to what I do. And you can classify those keywords into different groups. Or does it have commercial intent, meaning they want to buy? Is it investigative, like they're looking for information? So there's you depending on how much you could put it into four categories, and I've seen it go all the way up to 8 or 9 different categories for keywords. But that's the main point of it is to be visible. In the most common sense, people are talking about being visible on Google. And so there's two places you can be visible on Google. One is the organic search results, which are non-localized results, not in the map pack. The second one is
Mhm.
local SEO, and that's actually the 3 pack of business locations with reviews. And in some cases, you'll have a business that does both, where some keywords will trigger the map pack and some will trigger the localized organic results. But really, the main point of it is if somebody's searching for terms relevant to what you offer, you want to be visible for that so that they're aware of your brand, they're aware of your company, and they're aware of the potential solution that you provide. And so
Yeah.
as a just a simple example, if you are a cash home buyer, right, you want to make like cash home buyers in Dallas or sell my house fast Dallas, because if somebody has a distressed property, they want to sell that really fast, they're going to go online, and one of the things they're going to do is search, how can I sell my house fast? Fastest way to sell my house, cash home buyers. That's if they're really at the point where they know, okay, I want a cash home buyer, that so I'm searching for that. So that would be kind of a commercial term. Or maybe they're in the informational stage where they don't know that a cash home buyer is the solution. So they're going to go
Mhm.
online and they're going to search for, like, how could I sell my house fast? Or what are some ways to maximize my home's value? And we've even seen it get into specific stuff like, should I stage my home to sell it, for sale by owner paperwork? There's various
Mhm.
stages. They're things that indicate they have some intent of selling their house themselves. It just depends on where they're at in the process. And so if you can meet them at any level, then you have a better
Mhm.
chance of converting them. So if they first say, I'm going to sell my house for sale by owner, and you say, here's the paperwork you need to for sale by owner in Dallas, and then they say, okay, well, I tried that, it isn't working, how can I get more value? And then you have content that talks about staging the house, professional photography, tips for marketing it. So they read that content,
Mhm.
they engage with it, and then they say, well, my house still hasn't sold. Now I'm starting to get panicked. My cushion's over. I need to sell the house right now. And then there you are again through SEO or through remarketing or through the database if they've opted into something. And so now you have the
Right.
solution for a problem as it developed. Because some people will start right at the bottom. They already know what they need. Some people will be higher and they're just curious about options. And so if you can get them all along the way and then tailor your messaging to where they're at, you'll be able to convert more of those people, because only a small percentage of most searches are people who immediately want to take action. The majority of
Yeah.
the action will happen with people who need to move a little further through the process. And that can happen in days, or in some, business to business, it could happen over several months or even over the course of a year from the time they go to investigation until they're purchasing. So the sales cycle will vary by industry, but that's kind of the whole point of SEO, and that's why it works so well too, because based on what you rank for, what stage they are. Whereas if you're pushing something
Mhm.
outbound, you might run a paid ad. You don't know necessarily on Facebook if they need to sell their house this week, or if they're just, they have 3 months to sell their house. Whereas if they search, you can figure out by how they search where they might be, so you can deliver much
Mhm.
more specific messaging that way, which will impact customer acquisition cost usually in a positive way.
Did you know that you can participate in class every Monday? We call it Monday Night Live, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me and dozens of other investor agents from around the country, in fact, the world. Every Monday, totally free. No selling, no recruiting, just straight up education on anything and everything in real estate. And we have a lot of good guests coming on once or twice a month, bringing in expertise on subjects like how to buy a house with crypto. Okay. How about them apples? What about AI? How's AI affecting our business? How about the metaverse, blockchain processing? We're already using it in title work. So come on to Monday Night Live. Be ready to take notes and ask questions, because it's live and engaging, and you get to participate by asking questions and meeting others. So we'll see you there. Go to GaryRealEstateWithGaryWilson.com, click on the resource tab, drop down, and you'll see Monday Night Live. And in there, you can see one of the most recent classes. But more importantly, you can register for class as many as you want going up to like the end of the year, I believe. So in any case, do that. We'll see you on Monday Night Live. Look forward to meeting you in person. Take care. Yeah. And now that is there any truth to, let's, like a lot of things in life. The more you do something, the better you get at it. And also with marketing, it seems to be a momentum type activity. In other words, when you start marketing, you have to keep going. You can't like start and stop and start and stop. But I've known agents over the years, and the most successful ones, they keep trying new things. That's part of what they do, testing. But at the core, they have like a foundation of three things they're doing consistently day in, day out, and they never stop. Is there truth to that? Like over time, it tends to, like it's like you're building up the momentum and then it starts to pay you back, and it keeps going as long as you keep going, you know?
Yeah, so you definitely build momentum in marketing. I'd say the
Mhm.
biggest area where I'll see somebody make a mistake with that though is they may say, okay, I started by doing these three things. And since I've been doing them for a while, I better continue doing these three things. But then
Yeah.
if you actually look at the analytics, the numbers of it, maybe option number three of the three has a terrible ROI. It hasn't really got any momentum. And so it makes sense to replace things like that along the way. So momentum is important and you get a compounding effect. And even with SEO, the stronger your site gets, the more authority it gets, the more content you have on a topic, the more visibility you have. It's not linear. You don't go from one visitor to two and two to three. You go from one
Right.
to four and four to 16 and 16 to 80, right? Because all these things start to compound and work together. And with marketing in general, it is important to have consistency, but it's also important that you're measuring the output of that because you might be wasting time or resources on a channel that doesn't work, that you should move that over to one that is going to work better. But yeah, consistency, that's a big thing. And a lot of outbound marketing methods, especially, those do require more time, more consistency. So if you're doing organic social media, if you're doing email outreach and things like that. If you're sending out
Mhm.
mailers, for example, you're going to need
Mhm.
a longer shelf life of those things before they start to show a payoff. But
Yeah.
over time, it does work out. So yeah, it's very important to be consistent. Just make sure you're not being consistently wasteful of your resources on something that doesn't produce.
Yeah. Yeah. And for everybody listening, I want you to keep this in mind too. And Travis can certainly speak more to it than me. But if you think back in the old days before we had computers and the internet and, online commerce and all that with a lot of online marketing, you had traditional marketing. And if one of the examples I like to give people is a really good marketing campaign is the old McDonald's hamburger, you know, two all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese. I mean, I don't remember the rest, but that goes back to when I was a kid and I still remember that. But the
Mhm.
problem is even the best marketing campaigns slow down over time. In other words, it's not, you know, they just lose their luster. Same thing with it was Honda when they had the target, and then a great commercial where all these arrows are shooting at this target, and the Honda message was, it's great to be the thing that everybody else is shooting for, something like that. But with SEO and online marketing, what happens is it's not like you start losing people over time. It just the projectile of the growth might slow, although you still have a solid base of people responding to your marketing. So everybody keep that in mind. That's why you want to keep it going. Is there one example you can think of, Travis, of maybe a client you've helped in the past of one of the most common SEO challenges that you've helped people through, and maybe what was the outcome? If you have an example of one of those.
Yeah, so there's a couple that comes to mind. One of them actually will start with a bad story. So we had a
Okay.
person, since we already talked about real estate investors. So we had a guy come to us about 5 months ago, and he was previously generating 50, 100 cash home buyer leads per month from his website, quite a lot. And he did that because the SEO agency he was working with, they took a lot of shortcuts and they were kind of playing right on a dangerous line. So they did that so that they could offer him a low cost, but try to show him a faster output. And so
Yeah.
when Google made their update last year, the helpful content update, he actually lost all of his rankings, all of his visibility, all of his lead flow completely went to non-existent.
Hmm.
And at that point, he started to realize like something must have went wrong. He didn't know at the time that the SEO company was doing something that would get him into trouble. But then when he came to us, we showed him, look, here's what they've done. Here's the issue. Here's 20 other sites that did the same thing, and they've all had the same outcome following this update. And so here's what we need to do differently to start to turn that around. And so we've been working, on his website just to try to redo it. And that's the thing to keep in mind is sometimes if you make a big mistake with the past company like this one, you're going to have a period of suffering. There's just really no way around it. You're
Yeah.
basically on probation with Google. So we are down to the last 40 pages of his website to redo, I think, and then they'll all be updated and published, but that's been over four or
Hmm.
5 months. And so he's had to go through this
Wow.
period of 4 or 5 months with very limited deal flow through his website, all because he ended up with a penalty because they took a risky approach. And it worked for a short
Yeah.
while, what it did. And so that's something you have to be aware of when somebody offers you SEO is if they tell you it's going to work really fast, it's not untrue. There's things you can do to make it happen really fast. It just doesn't last that long a lot of times. So it's not a good place to be. Now,
Yeah.
another example over basically the same time frame between uh, when his site got hit and now that we're nearing the end of it, about 9 months timeline, we had another person come to us, a mortgage broker. So his website was
Hmm.
online, but he never really promoted it with SEO. And so he was getting, 20, 30 visitors per month to his website in month one. Fast forward to month nine, he's getting about 15,000 visits per month to his website, and he's closing somewhere between 8 to 12 loans per month from that traffic. And so in that
Yeah.
space, bulk like the average home value in the US, I think it's like 427,000, something like that. So at the low end of the average, it'd be like $5,000 per loan. So I mean, basically, we're talking about on the low end, 80 to $100,000 per month in revenue being generated by month nine from
Mhm.
using the right strategy. And so, two people, similar investments they probably made over time, one with the right strategy,
Yeah.
the right plan, one with not as good of a plan, obviously. And so that's the thing, and it kind of goes back to the consistency too. You have to figure out what's a realistic timeline, because if you need, and there's nothing wrong with this, if you're a new business and you need leads and you need to make money like in the next month or two in order to stay afloat, that's okay. But SEO isn't how you do that. That's when you use paid ads, you use direct response, you use outbound, you call people on the phone, you do whatever you need to do to generate those leads quickly and that revenue. But when you're in a stable
Right.
position where 6, 9, 12 months, I can consistently invest this much into SEO, and I know that I'm going to start to see an output towards the latter part of that timeline, that's when it's a great time to use SEO. And so that's the to go down a rabbit trail, that's some of the biggest things that we'll see is, they have a bad strategy, which sometimes is correlated to trying to make SEO fit where it doesn't, try to make it happen fast. And the other one is, just not realizing that SEO is meant to be, it's a slow burn. So it's a marathon. You have to be willing to put in. It's kind
Right.
of like going to the gym and working out, right? You can go to the gym and work out for 3 months, and then if you don't go to the gym anymore, you're going to lose all your progress and then some.
Right.
Whereas if you keep going by month 6, you're going to be proportionately stronger than you were after the first 3 months. And by month 12, you're going to be doing stuff that you couldn't have imagined in month one. And so SEO works much the same way. And so I think those two stories, they'll really illustrate, same amount of time, two completely different strategies and two completely different outcomes.
Yeah. Yep. Hey, what are you know, probably a real rudimentary question. Um, can you give an example of like, so let's say someone has a website, they have a presence on Facebook, a presence on YouTube, LinkedIn, and maybe Instagram. There's some others, but and let's take a dentist for example. you
Mhm.
know, and maybe they're in Indiana, so they serve Indianapolis and maybe the Louisville market, which is not too far away, different state. But what things should they be aware of when it comes to their descriptions of their website, their descriptions on YouTube, and their introduction on Facebook, in the way the words that they use and the phrases they use? Um, Anything we can give them like a golden nugget, So
Yeah. So the big thing is when you're serving a specific geographical location, you want to take every opportunity to describe your business, because Google will see a lot of these things, and some of it being social media, some being citations, which would be where you list your business name, address, and phone number, a lot of times followed by a description. So what you
Mhm.
want to do is you want to mention your location as well as the key services that you offer in that. So if you're a dentist, you wouldn't try to list every possible dental service you offer, but if there's a couple of key ones that you offer, you'd want to make sure that those consistently appear across all of the places you're describing your business. Because Google will start
Yeah.
to curate all that and they'll say, okay, here's a dentist that's in Indianapolis and they specialize in cosmetic dentistry and Invisalign. And everywhere
Mhm.
we look, they're saying the same message. So we have a pretty good indication that that's probably what they do. Whereas if on one you say, oh, I'm in this location, I do this, and site B, you say, oh, we're near this location and we actually offer this service too, you're sending less of a consistent signal. And so the other
Yeah.
thing with that too, if you're a location-based business, is local citations, which can be directories like Yelp, Yellow Pages, but it can also be anywhere you describe your business where you can include your name, address, and phone number. Those are all
Mhm.
great ways to create signals for local SEO. Now, the weight of those is not as high as it used to be. There's some other things that will
Yeah.
outweigh that, reviews, proximity, things like that. But it's still a good and easy thing to do if you're already going to set up all those profiles. Think about, your main message, your main service, and make sure that that's consistent across the board, because that will help you not only with Google seeing consistency, but also if somebody goes, say that somebody searches for a dentist and they say, okay, a cosmetic dentist in Indianapolis, they see your business, and before they call you, they go and then search you by name. And so now they see your
Mhm.
Facebook profile, they see YouTube, they see all these things, and they're like, well, everywhere they're talking about, I see stuff about cosmetic dentistry. So I think that that is obviously something that they really do a lot of. Versus if
Yeah.
they looked at 10 profiles and all 10 of them had a completely different message. And so it can
Yeah.
help you with the conversions, not just the SEO, if you look at it that way.
Yeah. So being consistent is really important, it sounds like, So, I mean, the name of your business should be on your website. The name of your business should be on your Facebook page, and then offer the service or product you're offering, like Visalign, for example. Now, is there a lot of merit to or benefit to leveraging another trade name like Visalign? I know what Visalign is. I don't use it. I haven't used it, but I know what it is. So if a dentist put in there in their description on YouTube channel, on Facebook, and on the website, you know, certified provider of Invisalign, something like that, would that help their SEO? Not just because they're promoting themselves, they have their own name branded on their social media sites and website, but they also are using or leveraging Invisalign, which may have a much bigger um, search, have much higher searchability. I don't know if I'm making sense, but
Yeah, that
you know,
does. It makes sense. Yeah, so it's you'll see
okay,
that a lot with, especially in cosmetics, like if they have a particular type of
yeah,
fillable or injectable, something like that, they'll use a
yeah,
specific brand name. So what you have to think about with that is remember, Google isn't the only search engine. YouTube's a search engine. So if you have a
yeah,
description and you talk about you're a cosmetic dentist, you're in Indianapolis, and you do Invisalign, and somebody's on YouTube and they're searching about Invisalign in the area, right? You can get some visibility there from that person. They're going to see, okay, here's a dentist that he actually happens to be where I am, and he's showing a demonstration of Invisalign. So you can get visibility there. Same way with other, directory listings, things like that. You can show up if people are searching for that, because some people will search for cosmetic dentistry, but some people are going to search specifically for Invisalign. And so Google will even
yeah,
show, if you mention it, like in your business description on Google, it will say website mentions Invisalign. So they're
yeah,
actually be sending those signals, but they would expect that you would have at least some of those too, right? If 99% of cosmetic dentists offer Invisalign and you don't offer Invisalign, it seems a little odd, So that's
yeah,
part of it, is they're looking at what's the consensus for people that we show for this. So it definitely helps on your website, but it can also help on secondary profiles where people might search so they can come up with those combinations, because Google is getting really good about showing geo-targeted content, even if you don't add a location. And so if you're in a particular city and you just search for Invisalign, you're going to find pages of people that do
yeah,
Invisalign in the area.
mhm,
Whereas if you don't have Invisalign mentioned, then they may see people that are outside of the immediate area just because that's the closest person who did specifically talk about Invisalign. And so,
yeah,
there's a lot of ways. And to get to the specific answer, because we could go down a really big rabbit trail with this,
yeah,
you need to
yeah,
do the keyword research on each of the platforms to figure out what people search for. And then you should include those in your descriptions. And so you can see search volumes on Google for Invisalign versus on YouTube. And then you can figure out what you want to have and which one is most important. But um, from a consistency standpoint, though, there's never harm in, if you offer Invisalign and you want to put that on YouTube and put it in your description, there's no harm in doing that, because again, if they go back and search for you by name, they're going to be exposed to that additional information. So not
Yeah.
really a lot you lose on that.
Yeah. Hey, now what about people that have they don't have like a specific location. They're not in Denver, Colorado. They have a national presence. Like they're mainly online perhaps, but when it comes to citations um and I'm gathering like Google and the other search engines, they do look for addresses and things like that. What do you tell people if they're in the middle of nowhere, like somewhere up in Montana? I mean, it's no like a 500 person town nobody's ever heard of. Is there any workaround there, or does that harm people in SEO world?
Yeah.
There's nothing to do about it, or
So if that's your situation, you're gonna the map pack is not really going to be fruitful for you, so you're going to have to cast that one aside. So the workaround is
yeah,
you would create location pages for locations that you're not in but you service. So if you're in
ah,
the middle of nowhere, Colorado, but you want to service Denver, then you would make a page on your website for, say, Denver, Invisalign, Denver, Colorado. Now, in that case, people are not probably going to travel to you in the middle of nowhere. So if you're a dentist, you're kind of in trouble. But if you can
yeah,
offer things nationally, or you have several service areas where you can send teams out to, or you're selling a product, you can just basically make combinations of a service type plus a location page and use
hmm,
those to get some visibility. It'll be below the map pack, but you're still going to get some traffic and some clicks there, especially if we're talking about a larger city, a larger location. And so
yeah,
that's kind of the workaround. But as far as the map pack itself, there's not a good way to get around that other than getting an office in the actual main city. And
yeah,
the benefit it provides is sometimes worth it, to rent an office right in the center of a city that you really want to be visible in, even if you don't use the office that much. You may
mhm,
spend a couple $1,000s per month renting the office, but you're going to see a return far greater than that because of the customers it brings in. And so you'll see that a lot of times with, like, say, law firms. They will have several satellite locations that maybe one person goes to, or it's by appointment only. But they're doing that because now they're pulling local cases from all these other areas that they might not have otherwise. There's a great return
yeah,
there. So, it's just a marketing expense basically to have the office. So that's the better of the two. Or you can do a combination of the two as well. It really just depends. But the big thing you have to think of from a viability standpoint is if somebody has to travel to your location, you just have to think about how far people would travel. Like, I know there's some studies about people who travel X miles, for example, to go to a dentist. So it
hmm,
wouldn't really make a lot of sense to rank for places outside of that area unless you do something very specialized that people are going to have to travel for. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it really just depends on
Well,
what.
yeah. Well, I've always wondered about online businesses where they're clearly having a physical location is not part of their model, whether it's a service or product. Well, actually, probably always a product. No, it could be a service. I mean, like you and I can work from anywhere, So, but I have agents in all those different cities, and so we show them how to set up their own websites and everything, and they're all of our Facebook pages, all of our websites, interact with each other and reference each other and things like that. We all have the same team name. So that's how we've been able to do it. So sort of like you said, we have pages out there that I don't personally own, but the agents do because they're in those specific areas. But I guess that's why it works. Um, well, listen, I know we've probably gone a little bit past her. They always tell us a half hour, but was there anything else that you could share? Like, how could if people want to make this part of their game plan for attracting and growing new people and growing their business? I mean, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you? I understand you got a great way for people to engage with you through a free consultation. It just doesn't cost anything. And guys, you can't go wrong with getting an expert, like Travis, looking at what you have. He knows what's wrong. He knows what will work to make it right. I mean, just look at his accolades. If you look him up, right? Travis Bliffen. Um, there'll be a website too. I think it's stellarseo.com. Is that right,
Yep, that's right.
Travis? So stellarseo.com. Check them out for yourself, but get that consultation so you know why you're getting the results. Maybe you're not getting the results you want to get, and maybe have some hope that you can get the results you want because it does work. I'm living proof of it, and that's why I have Travis on. We haven't had anybody like him for a long, long time. So this has been a special podcast. But anything else, Travis, you want to mention? Final words of wisdom, or the three things everybody needs to know, about SEO.
Yeah, so I'd say we'll just pivot over and I'll share this with real estate agents in particular because I see a lot of mistakes in that field individually.
Hmm.
The first one is, as we talked about before, right? Those commercial terms, those investigative terms. One of the easiest things to do is actually become a expert on a very small location as a real estate agent. So take Nashville, for example. Nashville, there's several areas, but let's say you really want to focus on East Nashville. So if you have a real estate agent website of your own and East Nashville is where your audience is, I should be able to go to your website, find out about school ratings, crime rates, things to do, travel, all that information. Because if I'm researching moving to an area, those are the kind of things I want to know.
Yeah.
And if you meet me there, then you can, through remarketing and other things, you can stay visible to me. The
Yeah.
most success we've seen with real estate agents is when they do have one, or maybe they have several, but you have very, very specific locations that you're an expert in. You know that location. And I'll tell you, sometimes we may feel a little apprehensive, like, I don't really want to pass off this lead to somebody else. But I've seen really great referral networks where, one person does East Nashville and one person does Germantown. And so they will
Hmm.
swap leads when somebody's looking in the other area because they know that person can give them a really unique experience. Um,
Yeah.
it works really well. The other thing too is, as a real estate agent, you should not try to promote the houses. You should try to promote yourself, your service. So Zillow, the large companies like that, they're going to basically own all the listings for, houses for sale in insert city. That's
Hmm.
that's their ball game. That's where they're going to play. But you're more than a house for sale. You're an asset, right? If you're a good agent, you're
Hmm.
bringing expertise, you're bringing knowledge of the area, you're bringing negotiation. And so you should be marketing those things, target keywords that people look for that, right? So real estate agents that specialize in X, Y, or Z, if you have some kind of specialization that you really help with, that will make a huge difference on the SEO front as well. Um,
Yeah.
and the last thing I would say for agents is sometimes it just SEO is not going to be the right answer. I've
Right.
seen plenty of cities where there's so much competition with well-established agencies that if you're up and coming, you're going to have a really hard time competing just because they can invest 10 times as much as you and see a return on it because they're established in the area. And
Yeah.
so, be wary of that. If you're in a large city, you have a limited budget, and somebody's telling you, "Oh, yeah, SEO is going to be a great option for you," it may not be the case. So get a
Yeah.
second and third and fifth opinion because some people just want to get your money and that's just the nature of it. So that's what I'd say specific to that. But just more
Yeah.
broadly speaking, with SEO, it's just really important to think about it realistically and feasibly. If you know the
Hmm.
value of something and somebody's telling you, "Oh yes, I can go and make you $1 million if you give me $10," right?
Hmm.
Really? Why would because if it gets too out of hand, right? You're thinking that doesn't really make any sense. You should just probably take your own $10 and multiply it and then retire. So you
Yeah.
have to have you need the realism there, right? So somebody can take your investment and they can grow it by doing their service. But the reason is because, you are taking some risk. That's the point of that is you get some risk
Yeah.
with it. And so that's the thing is some people try to sugarcoat it, oh, give me this and this magic thing will happen, but there's a risk factor with any type of marketing. And so keep that in mind when you're making your plans. Don't plan on a perfect outcome because
Yeah.
if you can have 50, 70% success of a campaign and it still produces a good ROI, you're going to have a hard time failing with SEO. And so that's the way we like to look at it is what's the
Yeah.
minimal viable output that would make this a success business wise?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree 100%. Well, I'll tell you what, that was a lot. I mean, you gave a lot of good intel on this podcast, and I was hopefully that was going to be the case, and we definitely got the right guy. For everybody listening, if you could leave a review for the podcast, remember your review is our currency. It What's makes the podcast world go around because we don't get paid for doing this. We're glad to do it. It's a community service. We get to network, meet each other. It's an awesome community. Um, but your reviews is what makes that all happen. So we certainly appreciate it. And Travis, we appreciate you, man. This has been a great podcast. Next time I'm down in Nashville, I'll definitely look you up. I've typically would travel more than I have been. Pandemic kind of got me spoiled to work from home, so don't
Mhm.
get out as much as I used to. But in any case, God bless you and your loved ones. And that goes for you, the listener, too. Make sure you're on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. In the meantime, have yourself an awesome, productive, successful day.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.